Next, Madame Noire. Mademoiselle Noire. We bow to your superior greatness, and I think this is the first time we've had a New York best-selling author. John, did you make the list?
It was in Denver, not New York.
It was in Denver. It was in Denver. It was in San Francisco and Denver, but not New York, and not Amazon. So it's the first time we've had a real scribe celebrity, and Cara Black actually visited. I hope you don't mind me saying this. Bangkok in the 1970s, and she took up a job much less demeaning than teaching English. But then later on went to teach English, I believe, in the States. A Francophile, as John is, a wonderful writer, and put your hands together, please, for her time in coming here and speaking with us, Mrs. Cara Black.
Bonsoir. 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 I want to thank you all. I want to thank Christopher Moore, really organized this for me. I'd like to thank Kevin Cummings, who made me reveal that dirty secret about working in Patpong in the 1970s. Okay, I was here then. I worked in a big Chinese bar, I don't remember the name, and I was the only foreigner working there. And I just remember the GIs coming in on R&R on the weekend. I lived at the Atlanta Hotel over here, and Soy too. But after the 70s, can you hear me?
Sure.
After the 70s, I went to France, and I went to visit my friend, and she told me a story. This was 1984, about her mother. She took me to this area and said, you know, I don't think you've ever seen this part of Paris. And we were walking down this street with 17th century buildings. They were soot-stained and darkened and sagging. And she said, you know, my mother lived here during the German occupation of Paris. I said, really? Yeah, she was 14 years old in 1942. She wore a yellow star, and she came home from school one day, and her family weren't there. She ended up living in this apartment in the Marais, the old Jewish district, and found out at liberation that her family were gone. They had died in Auschwitz. I never forgot that story. And somehow, years later, I started to write it down. So this is the first in my series, the Aimee Leduc Investigations. The story is set in Paris, 1993, on a Wednesday. Thank you, Christopher, for the glasses.
Look much better on you.
Aimee Leduc felt his presence before she saw him, as if ghosts floated in his wake, in the once elegant hall. She paused, pulling her black leather jacket closer against the Parisian winter morning slicing through her building, and reached for her keys. The man emerged from the shadows by her frosted-paned office door. A baby's cry wafted up from the floor below. Then the concierge's door slammed. "Mademoiselle, I need your help," he said. Leathery, freckled skin stretched over his skull, and his ears pointed out at right angles. He wore a crumpled navy blue suit and leaned crookedly on a Malacca cane. "No missing persons, monsieur," she said. As winter settled, the days gray, and the memories vivid. Old survivors revived hopes of lost ones. She slid her tongue across her teeth to check for anything stuck, smoothed her short brown hair, and smiled. She stuffed the chocolate poisson back in her bag. I don't find lost relatives. My field is corporate security. Aimee, at 5 feet 8 inches, loomed above him. Je suis désolé, monsieur, but computer forensics are my specialty. That's what I want. He straightened his posture slowly, his large eyes fearful. My name is Solly Hecht. I must talk with you. Behind his fear, she saw a sadness tinged by keen perception. She tried to be polite. Walk-in clients were rare. Most came through corporate connections or by word of mouth. It's not that I don't want your business, but we're carrying a full caseload. I can refer you to someone very good. I knew your father, an honorable man. He told me to come to you if I needed help. Startled, she dropped her keys and looked away. But my father was killed 5 years ago. As always, he's in my prayers. Hecht bowed his head. When he looked up, his eyes bored into hers. Your father and I met when he worked at the commissariat. She knew she had to hear him out. Still, she hesitated. The cold seeped from the floorboards, but it wasn't the only thing making her shiver. Please come inside. She unlocked the door that read Leduc Detective, that led to the office she'd taken over after her father's death, flipped on the lights, and draped her jacket over her armchair. 19th century sepia prints of Egyptian excavations hung on the walls, above digitally enhanced Parisian sewer maps. Hecht moved his cadaverous frame across the parquet floor. Something about him struck her as familiar. As he lifted his arm onto the desk, she saw faint blue numbers tattooed on his forearm, peeking out from his jacket sleeve. Did he want her to find Nazi loot in numbered Swiss bank accounts? She scooped ground coffee into the filter, poured water, and switched on the espresso machine, which grumbled to life. Specifically, Monsieur Hecht, what is the job? Computer penetration is your field. His eyes scanned the equipment lining the walls. He thrust a folder at her. Decipher this computer code. The Temple Emmanuel is hiring you. Regarding? We need proof that a woman's relatives avoided deportation to Buchenwald, but I don't want to raise her hopes. He looked away as if there was more he could say but didn't. I've stopped doing that kind of work, Monsieur Hecht. That was more my father's field. To be honest, if I kept his promise, you'd get less than the best. I knew your father. I trusted him. Hecht gripped the edge of her desk. How did you know him? A man of honor. He told me I could rely on you. Solly Hecht hung his head. We had many dealings before the explosion. I need your experience. She drummed her chipped red nails on her desk and pushed the painful memories aside. Steaming muddy liquid dripped into the waiting demi-tasse. Monsieur, un petit café? Non, merci. He shook his head. He said you would help me, that I could always come to you. Short of going back on her father's word, one path remained. D'accord, she relented with inner misgivings. I'll show you my standard contract form. My word must be enough. He extended his hand. As far as you are concerned, you don't know me. Agreed? I'm going to zip forward a little bit. She opens the file on her computer that he asked her to decipher, and it's a picture, a scene of a park in occupied Paris. And he tells her to deliver it into the hands of a woman in the Marais, and she's going there now. Below her office, she hailed a taxi that skidded to a stop on wet Rue du Louvre. Late evening crowds filled the awning sidewalk cafes. The Seine glittered on her right as the floodlit gray stone of the Pont Neuf flashed by. The buildings changed as the taxi entered the Marais, the Jewish district, full of 16th century hôtels particuliers, once abandoned and now often restored. Figures scuttled over the glistening cobblestones. In foggy, narrow rue des Francs Bourgeois, the taxi bumped over the curb and let her off. Fetid air hovered from the Bouche des Gouttes, the gutters leading to the sewers. Her destination, 64 Rue de Rosier, stood above a dusty window lettered Délices de Stein in faded gold, advertising kosher goods in Hebrew and French. Opposite stood a falafel stand with trays of chopped red cabbage, onions, and pickled carrots peeking out from under a striped canopy. Dark green paint flaked off the massive arched entry doors in front of her. She made her way past a bicycle leaning against a stone wall below a peeling circus poster. The cobbled courtyard smelled of yesterday's garbage. To her left, a vacant concierge's loge guarded the entrance. On the second floor landing, the dark wood door of Lily Stein's apartment stood ajar. From inside, a radio program blared. She knocked loudly several times. No answer. She pushed the creaking front door open. Hello? Slowly she entered the dim hallway of a musty apartment. Reluctant to invade someone's privacy, she hesitated. Still no answer. Inside, her eyes adjusted to the darkness. From the hall, she peered into the dim living room, then walked inside. A pine sideboard held a cloth runner embroidered with the Star of David and bearing brass candlesticks. Beside that, a vintage radio stood next to it, next to a recliner, the upholstery worn and spattered with grease spots. Approaching the radio, she saw a framed sepia photo on the wall. In it, a young girl wearing an old-fashioned school uniform